to come here to share our concerns and our support for Pete Hegseth across the nation. We're sending a message today that our entire nation is going to see, that our senators and congressmen are going to see, where the warrior class stands. And the warrior class stands firmly behind Pete Hegseth and his. In any event where I have a leadership role in, I'm a SEAL, I'm not a saint, but I'm smart enough to realize to give it up to God first. Teresa is going to lead us in prayer.
Ladies and gentlemen, please bow your heads. Lord God, thank you for the opportunity today to speak about an amazing warrior, JJ, Pete Hegseth. We are gathered here today to celebrate something that is historic. The first time our veteran community has rallied together for a Secretary of Defense. Please keep us safe. Please keep us healthy. Please keep everything peaceful. In your name, amen.
Amen. We're sending a message for our entire nation to see. And we have some of our nation's leaders that have honored us to support our cause, to support Pete Hegseth. Our nation is at a tipping point. We might not get another shot at this. There's more strategic global threats than there's ever been before. The leadership in the military has gone astray. Pete's the right skipper to get that ship and change in the right course of direction. And honored and graceful to have Senator Tommy Tuberville here come and speak.
Thank you. This is impressive. It really is. For a nominee, somebody to be confirmed, hopefully in the very near future, this is awesome. You know, it's great to be standing here with people like the SEALs and all the veterans and all the patriots and all the ones that's going to march tomorrow for Pete. I've known Pete for a few years. I wish we didn't have to do this, but it still shows support. 100% confirmed, ran through, and get our military back the way it should be. And here's some of the bravest patriots and warriors on the face of the earth. And it shows what support is about when you're talking about somebody that's going to be in charge of the Department of Defense. I'm not a politician. I wasn't on active duty. He landed 17 and 18-year-olds out of bed, much less fight a war. And that's what we're here today for. You know, it's not about the huge problems that we're having in this country, such as inflation, such as crime, bad education, and borders. Those are huge problems. Folks, you can't fix anything unless you have a strong military to protect the people of this country. You can't do that. That's where it has to start. Now, we have some great people in the military. That's some great people. But we're not a team. We're not fighting together. I coached teams before. I could tell before the season started that we weren't close. We didn't work together. We didn't earn it together. But now we need to pull this military together because that's what we have, the United States of America, they want what we have. Because the last 4 years, disaster. We have a lot of good people, a lot of good men and women that believe in the United States of America. And we have to have a leader. It all starts with one person. We don't need a general time restraint and respect, personal, even in yourself first. We an absolute continued disaster. It is over. November the 5th, the people of this country gave a mandate to this government that we have: straighten your shit up. Get back and start defending the. Now, in 4 years. Again, being on the Armed Services Committee, I asked our present Secretary of Defense it's all about woke. An affirmative act. That's what it's. Need a damn killing machine. Or we will pay. Has to get better. Of our military, young men and women involved in something that they don't. Something that they want to nominate young men. First got here that is in. That was going to be his goal. That was going to be his future. Of one of the best things that's ever put on the place of this earth is the United States military. Now, we nominated him. He was accepted. After he went, he says, no, get involved in this political nonsense, and didn't do it. We can't afford to let that happen to the best and the brightest in this country. We need to straighten our military academies out. We need to get back to everyday respect and loyalty and belief in this country with our military, and it all starts with Pete Hegseth. Pete is somebody that believes in this country. You have to believe in the United States of America before you can do anything. He believes in the United States. He believes in the future. He believes in making sure our kids have the greatest country on the face of the earth like we did, but give them that opportunity. Our kids are the biggest commodity we have in this country. Think about it. Our kids, if they continue the path of this education and don't learn the discipline and respect that we need to put back into a lot of things in this country, we won't make it. So, I'm here today to tell you I'm 110% behind Pete Hegseth. We will have, this time tomorrow, we'll be going through a confirmation process. He will be ripped. He will be demeaned. He will be talked about, but we're going to get him across the finish line. Now, this group of Democrats, they're there to stop Donald Trump of achieving his agenda. And it all starts tomorrow with Pete Hegseth. Donald Trump would have not picked him if he didn't think he was the best one. He would have not done it. So, I'm here today to thank you for what you're doing, the direction that you're going, the march that you're having tomorrow, the accumulation of you here today. Again, it all goes back to loyalty and love of the country that we all believe in. And so, I'm here today to thank you. And we're kind of kicking this off tomorrow. It'll be 24 hours of across the goal line. and take it back. Bless all.
We are so honored. Some encouraging words to rally spirits, bring this country back. As a legend in this field.
Longest serving enlisted member of the United States military to ever be elected to Congress in the history of our nation. So when I stand up here publicly, an officer, you better him well. How many E-dogs? Okay, listen. Most highly educated military in the history of the planet, and we haven't won a They want to know if you put warheads on foreheads. Anything the Department of Defense is a waste of time and money. The world is the most dangerous it's been since World War II, and that's because of weak strategic leadership projected by Joe Biden, strategic leadership projected by the staffers that were running the White House for 4 years. Lloyd Austin, travesty. Former chairman of Joint Chiefs of Staff, Mark Milley, forget about it. Should be recalled on to Afghanistan. Hegseth understands one thing that we all learned with him. You only take children, our children, American children, to war if you have to. If you absolutely have to is the only time you go to war. And then, damn it, when you get there, you fight. He's fighting to win. He's going to follow the leadership of Donald J. Trump. He's going to be working with Mike Waltz, who I served in combat with in Afghanistan as a national security advisor. And if we go to war, we will win. We will protect this country. We will protect our allies. That is our solemn duty, but we need a leader in place, and his name is Pete Hegseth. So if your senator is on the fence, put down your phones from recording this and call him right now and say that you will hold them personally accountable in the electoral process if they do not support Pete Hegseth. Is that clear? That was the senior shift talk. God bless you, God bless America, and let's get Pete over the
If that wasn't inspirational enough. We got a Green Beret Congressman. So,
Well, thank you very much. I am the token Army Green Beret here amongst all of these SEALs. And I first have to just tell you, you know what we Green Beret call SEALs? Lifeguards. I want to just give you my bona fides, because this is important, what we're discussing here today. Pete Hegseth. I was in the Army, the active duty Army, for 25 years. I started out in the 82nd Airborne Division, a couple of tours, Army Special Forces, a couple of tours, to include a deep strike, nuclear-capable 12-man A-team. We were the real deal. But then I had a heavy tour, out of character, I know, with the tanks. But then in the joint world, I served in the J3 in the Pentagon, in the black world. I served in the U.S. European Command, J3. I served in the NATO military headquarters I served in the U.S. Embassy in Cairo, Egypt. I was actually called out of retirement to serve with Central Command in Afghanistan and Iraq. So I've seen it soup to nuts. A little bit of history. I graduated from West Point 2 months after Saigon fell. In the next 16 years, we took that Vietnam-era counterinsurgency military and turned it into the powerful combined arms integrated force that destroyed our Desert Storm enemy in days, not weeks. And 10 years later or so, a smaller but higher tech force did exactly the same thing in Iraqi freedom. And then came along Biden and Afghanistan withdrawal. And that's where we are today. I've seen this. I've been through this up and down before. People talk about Pete Hegseth managing DOD. I don't want Pete Hegseth. Trump's got a team behind him that's going to do that. I want a leader at the head of DOD that is going to be a visionary, that's going to lay out the new vision, the new mission, and restore the warrior ethos, the warrior culture to DOD. That's who we need at the head of DOD. I don't want a manager. I want a leader. That is Pete Hegseth. Look, I'm the chairman of the Europe Subcommittee for Foreign Affairs today. I can't do my job if we don't have the most powerful military backing up what I say to our European allies and our European adversaries. It doesn't work unless our military returns to deterrence, which is not only the capability but the will. Believe you me, Donald Trump brings the will. What we need is the capability and the leadership of DOD. As the Senator said, we've got some fine young men and women down at the tactical level. What we need is fine, strong leadership for them at the leadership level. We got plenty of Derek Von Ordens out there.
I don't know that that's true.
What we need is Pete Hegseth at the head of DOD. I am here supporting Pete Hegseth. I appreciate your support. Tomorrow, let's show him all the support, moral and physical, we can do. Thank you for inviting me as the lone Green Beret. Thank you so much.
You know, in the SEAL teams, there's no greater love than for your brothers. And one of my greatest brothers is Rob Sweetman. And he's been a leader with the New York City SEAL Swim. With Pete's help, we've raised millions of dollars to help SEALs, Gold Stars, veterans, and their families. Rob has been, you know, we've been rocking and rolling on this. Right. I want to introduce you to my brother, SEAL Rob Sweetman.
Wow. Who would have thought we all could have come together like this? I couldn't be more honored, first of all, to be able to vote for a president that I can believe in, but also an entire team. Isn't it a team that we voted for? Have you guys ever seen anything this powerful? And we need it. We absolutely need it right now. I wanted to tell you guys a story about a friend of mine, Justin McAfee. So I was in the SEAL teams, did 8 years, and I ended up in a platoon with a guy. Became great friends with him, served with him downrange. And I transitioned out, and then all of a sudden, Secretary Austin started in on the withdrawal from Afghanistan. People are devastated. And then I'm talking to my buddy Justin, and he tells me his story, that all of a sudden they're requiring everyone to take this forced jab, that no one really knows what's going to happen. Now we see some of the negative side effects. Just listen to us. It doesn't matter that it's not tested. Take the jab and just do as you're told. Well, he stood up for his right to protect his own body in good conscience. That this is the right thing to do. Definitely don't want my kids to have it, that sort of thing. And he was chastised for it. He is now out in the civilian world without a career in the SEAL teams. By the way, the SEAL teams, that's the best job you can possibly have in the military. And his career is gone. There's 8,000 service members, their careers are gone because of the decisions that Secretary Austin made in 2021. It's absolutely unacceptable what we did in Afghanistan, what we forced our service members to do. And by the way, What's going on at the border right now? I live in San Diego. I get it, right? But how can you just let anybody into the border? How can we say that our country is secure if we don't know who's coming across the border? This is an absolute travesty. We need the DOD to step up. We need the Pentagon to look at who is our threats coming across the border as well as broadly, and who's going to do that? It's not going to be Austin. We need Pete Hegseth. We need him tomorrow to stand up tall against these people. We're going to ask him a bunch of crazy questions. We've already seen the smear campaign. None of this is real. Pete's a good dude. We know him personally. And we've been out there. Bill and I, we've been on the swim with him. The guy will never give up. He's a patriot. He's went downrange. He's done the right things. And he's got my vote. Thank you.
You know, anybody who's put it on the line for this country, there's no greater love than we have than those that serve with us. And there's no greater love that we have, that Pete has, than our female warriors. And there's no greater advocate for them than Teresa Carpenter.
Hello, everybody. I'm Teresa Carpenter. I am actually an active duty naval officer. I'm prior enlisted. I went from fixing airplanes as an aviation electrician's mate on the S-3B and then the P-3 to being a surface warfare officer on DDGs, and then now I am a public affairs officer. I've served for nearly 30 years. I've never done advocacy on this level before. I was an animal advocate before for commercial breeding operations, but this cause caused me to take a stand. When I saw the direction that the military was going, when I saw that we were not prioritizing merit at the expense of DEI, I knew it was my time to take a stand. That is what I'm doing today. I implore every woman to look at what Pete is doing and to have those tough conversations. You might say, oh, well, she's a woman. She shouldn't be supporting this because of the women in combat. No, I want those tough conversations. I want us to look at that study in 2015, and I want us to look at the gear issues with women, and I want us to have those hard conversations, because when we have these hard conversations and we get into the weeds of these issues, then we are being honest with one another. And I believe that it will have those tough conversations. So today, I stand here with these Navy SEALs, Green Berets, congressmen, and I couldn't be more honored to have this opportunity. And I have fellow female warriors with me, standing beside me in support of Pete Hegseth for the next Secretary of Defense.
Now, you know, there's really no better example to really get the what's what on somebody than talking to somebody who served with them or has been around them, unless it's my ex-wife. And Duranda of Ivanhoe, and I apologize, I don't know how to read that well. He served with Pete. He was in the 1st Company Commander, and I'm asking if you would come up.
So to fellow Special Forces representative, the Navy SEALs, what else are we missing here on Special Ops? Anybody else? Oh, Rangers lead the way. All right. Yeah. So, all right. My name is Captain Jurandir Araujo Jr., Captain J. Araujo for short. I was the Charlie Company, 2nd of the 113th Infantry Company Commander back in 2003 to 2005. I had the distinct honor and privilege to be their president, see, at that time, 2nd Lieutenant Hegseth received his commission at Princeton. I saw him pin on his bars, and I saw something special in him immediately. I informed him that we would be deploying soon with Charlie Company, Cold Steel, of which I have my soldiers here today supporting Pete. Hello? Yeah. And I told Pete when I met him is, all right, Lieutenant, I'm your company commander. Get ready. We're deploying. He was like, Roger that, sir. I'll be there ready to go. From the moment he hit the ground running. His men followed him. He always cared about his men. He cared about the mission, the objective. He made his men understand what the objectives were of that mission, right? He cared about the health and welfare of his men. One things as a second lieutenant, and I'm sure a lot of you men and women in here know, second lieutenants are learning all the time. And every once in a while, you know, things got a little shaky where the first sergeant got involved. And first sergeant came to me and he said, this lieutenant, he's got to drive. I love it, but he's got to check in with me. And I was like, Roger that, first sergeant. But I got to tell you, watch this second lieutenant. We're going to track his career because one day he's going to be the president of the United States. 2004, 21 years later, and Pete Hegseth for Secretary of Defense. He's going to change the whole culture because he's going to be a change agent. He will change things for the better. He will listen to his commander-in-chief just like he listened to his commander back in 2004 and through 2000. He has done it. He will be the best Secretary of Defense. Look around us. There's Marines, Air Force, probably Coast Guard in here too, right? In support of Pete Hegseth. I'll stop there. Secretary of Defense.
So Pete had the courage to jump in the dirtiest river in the country with a bunch of SEALs. The second year was Maggio was us to do it during COVID, but we got word. We had the FBI counterintelligence agent task force in both sides of the river, NYPD, JSPD looking out for us. Well, we got word back that Antifa thought they were going to stop the flag run with the 200 Navy SEALs. So I had a couple of my buddies. I said, hey, I want you guys to do PSD on Pete. We can't have anything happen to him. So I'm going to have those guys come up and speak. Kenny and Mitch, come on up.
Hello. Hey, how you guys doing? My name is Mitch Aguiar, former Navy SEAL, obviously, and yeah, met Pete at the swim. I was asked to be his private security. I didn't think he needed it, but you know, happy to do it. Along with Kenny here, both black belts in jiu-jitsu and professional fighters. So, you know, we're up for the task. But yeah, so Bill asked me to talk a little bit about my story. I did 10 years in the SEAL teams, got out and started my own small business, and you know, was doing pretty successful. During COVID, I was, you know, very outspoken against the vaccine mandates and all the tyranny that we were absolutely facing as a country, and you know, I took the only stand that I really could at the time, which on my social media platform, you know, had almost 400,000 followers and was the main driver of my sales for my business. And, you know, it just goes to show that this administration doesn't care at all about our veterans or any of our service members. And, you know, recently Mark Zuckerberg came out and admitted all of this on the Joe Rogan podcast, that they were extremely like pressured and you know, pushed to send, you know, accounts that were speaking, which is everything that is now verifiably true about the vaccines, COVID, etc. And I was one of those accounts. So my account was deleted, and I came this close to bankruptcy, and I'm still fighting, trying to keep my head above water due to that. I've seen this administration just crumble, all kinds of veterans and active duty. I also know an active duty SEAL that stood his ground and didn't get the vaccine, because of his personal beliefs. And I know that they made him, literally took him off of, active status, or not active duty, but he could not do any of the workups. They literally made him cut grass and stand watches, almost 2 years. And it's just ridiculous, So, anyway, we're seeing focusing on all the wrong things. And, one example recently in California with these wildfires, prioritizing instead of, having the reservoirs filled with water. But it is just a breath of fresh air that our administration, or our country, we need a new administration. We need a new. Personally, love to see close to the war fighters and moved from it. A lot of times in the military, it's not always who's best, it's who's left. Getting tired of it and leaving. And then you get the yes men that make it up to the So that's all I got to say. And here's Kenny.
There's the token Green Beret, and I'm the token black guy. You got to have one in every single movie. That being said, it's a huge honor for me to be here today amongst America's finest. Not just the warriors, but the people that the warriors fight for. So I appreciate and give a huge thanks for you that enable us and empower us to be here. I have 2 words. First, let me say this. I'm Kenny Bigby, former Navy SEAL, the 32nd African-American Navy SEAL in all of history. I bring that up to say that I represent the unity of the United States here today, and that's what makes us great. 2 words for Pete Hegseth: service and sacrifice. Service and sacrifice. The challenge with politics is politics. I'm not a politician. We're warriors. The only way to transcend politics is service and sacrifice with your life for our inalienable rights. Pete Hegseth served and sacrificed overseas, Iraq, Afghanistan. Also, visualize for a moment giving a staunch task of raising money for vets domestically on our soil. The only challenge is you have to swim amongst the finest frogmen, such as this sexy piece right here. The water's not your thing. Pete Hegseth took that challenge to support our veterans here domestically. Now, imagine for a moment that you had an imminent threat. Pete Hegseth showed up and showed out to show his patriotism domestically to represent our people and to give our best to our vets. I was tasked alongside my teammate, Mitch Aguiar, by our fearless leader, I call him Leonidas, Bill Brown, to protect Pete Hegseth. What I'm here to say is, Pete Hegseth has served and proven to serve and sacrifice with his life for our inalienable rights. The man, and as the Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth. Let's go.
Yeah.
And that's why I let him go at last.
You know, these are war fighters. That's who support Pete. That's who's on this podium. These are men and women who put it on the line for our country. And they're telling you the way it is. If you have over 100 SEALs that are going to come to Washington, D.C., you should pay attention to what we're saying. Now, I look at some of the absolute failures of leadership in the Pentagon. I can go, oh, you're going to give trillions of dollars of military gear to our enemies. Like, there should be a congressional investigation to everyone who had decision-making authority on that. You go, okay, we have multiple terrorist organizations across the planet. We have almost like a Cold War mentality with China. And to sophisticated and dangerous capabilities of portable weapon systems, you're going to leave the border wide open. Now, it doesn't take an intellectual in the Pentagon. There's not the CIA, NSA, FBI. No one can say what I'm telling you now is a lie. That was a huge national security threat. And then you can go, okay, look, you don't properly vet people. You're going to have small symptoms like what you had in New York City where someone gets burned alive. But we're talking about massive horror that could happen to any city in this nation. Huge national security risk. All the men and women who came to this podium had courage. Leadership in the Pentagon did not have courage to say, hey, we have a national security threat. We need to close that border. They failed. Pete has the courage to stand up. You could say, look, what about a Chinese spy balloon? Overtly gathering intelligence over sensitive military installations. It doesn't take a genius in the Pentagon to realize, hey, what type of message are you sending? Here's the truth. Biden and his administration, it really wasn't Biden making any decisions. It was Obama's inner circle making the decisions. Compromised that they couldn't even put down that Chinese spy balloon. Leadership in the Pentagon failed us again. Now here's something that's real important. Now, one of the reasons why we finished the New York City SEALs from at the World Trade Center, because a lot of guys like myself were SEALs on 9/11, and it changed our lives. And a lot of times I have family members who lost their loved ones on 9/11 come speak, or leadership on 9/11 come speak. And it helps us with the healing process and understand to see the other side, why we went downrange. And it's very good for the SEAL community. I was on Fox News yesterday, and some family members reached out to me that lost their loved ones on 9/11. And they said, hey, no one's listening to us. They said, no one's listening to us. They said, we can't believe Sheikh Mohammed killed 2,976 people, and they're going to let that son of a bitch live. And he breathes is a fucking insult. I have them coming crying to me, begging me to say something. I had one family member tell me they were in court. They broke court so soldiers would come bring out the prayer room. Muhammad and his co-counsel pray. Now you imagine you lost your loved ones on 9/11 and you have to endure that. Two leaders, then 9/11, speak. And I want you to share their concerns. They lost friends and loved ones on 9/11 and how they feel about the Pentagon's failed leadership to let Sheikh Mohammed get a plea deal where he doesn't get the death penalty. Because that's one of the greatest insults the people of New York and this country have ever faced. Tim Brown was a supervisor in FDNY during 9/11, and Jim Ryan, supervisor with the Port Authority. Gentlemen, can you please come to the podium?
Thank you. Thank you.
So on 9/11, like a lot of people, I responded to the Trade Center to help and rescue people. When I got there, both towers had come down, and then Building 7 came down. I then spent the next 9 months at the World Trade Center running a rescue recovery operation. Over the course of that 9 months, one of the things that gave me strength to accomplish that was interacting with members of our military from all branches, from all the SEALs, the Rangers, every group that was deploying that came, and what happened that day. And over the course of the time, we came to realize that there were 2,977 people that were killed on 9/11. Every one of those people had family members. To this day, I have not seen justice. I've spent the last 2 years traveling back and forth to Guantanamo Bay, right, to watch these hearings go on. And to say that we've drifted far away from the feeling that I felt on 9/11 and on 9/12, seeing our military personnel coming, knowing that they were going to take the fight to the enemy of the people that created this there. Now we have the planner, KSM, right, on trial, along with the other 4 enemy combatants, right? And the Secretary of Defense currently, right, the military personnel that are down there, right, go out of their way to accommodate them in every aspect of their day-to-day being. Sitting in the galley watching this hearings go on, the last time down there, right, the military personnel that were there came out and they provided us with new instructions, right? So imagine you're a family member sitting there watching the people that are responsible for your loved one's death. And they came out and they told us, going forward from this day, when you're here, you're going to have an assigned seat. Going forward from this day, you're not allowed to have any conversation while you're observing the hearings. Right? And to the point, which, again, need to use the restroom. If there's no escort available, you have to wait until there's a break. And then we'll escort you to the back. Treating family members, right, that travel to Gitmo, which is no easy task, right, to see the people responsible for their loved ones' deaths, right, be treated to the point that it's, as was mentioned there, you have soldiers bringing out prayer rugs for them. And the hearings themselves, right, they don't have to attend. It's up to them whether or not they want to attend the hearing. Right? It just goes beyond anything there that we would ever envision that this country would be at on 9/11 and the days afterwards there. Besides the 2,977 people that were killed on 9/11, right, we've lost 7,000 people due to the exposures. The military for 9/11 have lost almost 7,000 people that were killed in action and almost 50,000 people that were wounded. And we lose 22,000 veterans a day to suicide there from the impact of 9/11 and the wokeness that has embraced this country. We need a strong leader in the Department of Defense. We need Pete. We need somebody there that's going to return this country to common sense. 2 words: dignity and respect. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Tim Brown, and FDNY for 20 years. On 9/11, my office was 7 World Trade Center working for the mayor. I was under the South Tower when it came down and then the North Tower when it came down, and I was one of the few who got out. I am honored to be in a room with these volunteer warriors for John, for the 9/11 families, to serve proper justice for what these radical Islamist Al-Qaeda terrorists did to New York, Washington, Shanksville, and to America. Now, 23 years later, we're still trying to figure out what to do with the planning group that planned 9/11. It's ridiculous. It's unforgivable. It is so unfair to the families. It is so unfair to the survivors. And we need to fix this. We need someone that pays attention to it. Obviously, the current secretary was not paying attention because he was overseas, and he had to rush back when he found out about it. This is unforgivable. Out of the 2,977 murdered on 9/11, 343 firefighters, 37 Port Authority police officers, 23 NYPD police officers were murdered by radical Al-Qaeda Islamist terrorists. We can never forget that. We need to project peace through strength so this never happens to us again, anywhere in America. Post 9/11, we have lost hundreds and hundreds of police officers and firefighters from 9/11 related illnesses. As far as I'm concerned, those are all murdered by Al-Qaeda also. Just 1 year ago, I found out I have 9/11 cancer. So they did it to me too, or they're trying to. I'm fighting back, but they're trying. Pete Hegseth has been my friend for 10 years. He is a man. He never forgets where he came from. He is a patriot. He's a crazy patriot who jumps in the Hudson River with these guys. but he never forgets where he came from. He's a great communicator. He's a great leader. And he's going to be a great visionary as the next Secretary of Defense. Go, Pete.
I can't thank you enough for being a voice for all those families. I can't tell you how many phone calls I've gotten this week. I promised them I'd do everything I can to make their voices be heard, and you guys help me. You know, I want to talk about our female warriors and how much we love them, how much Pete loves them. Quesadilla, a Marine Corps veteran, and she'll tell you her story.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you again for taking the time to come out here for a historic moment in which I am very grateful and honored to represent a population that has been completely misrepresented based on the left's attempt to degrade women, in which Pete Hegseth has no intention of doing. I'm a Marine Corps veteran who served as a combat correspondent from 2012 to 2020. I've gotten out and started a small business and began life as a full-time student. I've worked hard, and I have also failed incredibly. And I think often not, the media is dying to live out this misrepresentation of perhaps failures that have come into Pete's life, but at no point in time are an embodiment of who he is. And oftentimes it's incredibly frustrating as somebody who stands as a woman proud to have served in my country and see complete disregard for what is completely not true. As a combat correspondent, I searched for the truth. That was what I did. I told stories of unsung heroes serving in the uniform, and I brought to light every piece and fabric of what they did for our country. Finding truth was what I did. And I see the truth that is coming from Pete wanting to take on one of the biggest roles for our country. If you want to see a representation of who he is, look at this room. Look at the caliber of individuals standing behind a man that know that he is going to do good. What we are seeing unfold is the systematic and purposeful collapse of the world's greatest fighting force, America's 911. We are so frustrated and angry by what has come undone by the current administration. And I joined at a time where I didn't even really know what was happening. It was foggy. We were serving overseas, fighting some war that I didn't really understand. But when I saw the collapse and withdrawal from Afghanistan, I knew it hit all of us hard. Even if we never deployed, we sat at our duty stations, we sat in our houses in tears, recognizing that it was our own government that had failed. I'm a woman, I'm a Marine Corps veteran, who is in support of a man that is going to represent every single person in the uniform, regardless of their gender, regardless of their color, regardless of the DEI woke intent to utilize something that will completely dismantle who we are as a fighting force. The term lethality has been used today, and that should be the centerpiece for how we move forward in establishing a government and a Department of Defense that's going to for our country. I'm so honored and grateful to be here to be a representation of the ladies that support him. And we will continue to support him and raise our hands knowing that this is the right decision that America needs to make. Thank you.
My next speaker is a good friend of mine, and just a coincidence happens to be a SEAL as well. Kaz.
Good afternoon, everybody. Kaj Larson. I spent 13 years in Naval Special Warfare as a SEAL officer, and I was actually entered the military at 17. I was at the U.S. Naval Academy. I was one of those 17-year-old plebes that Senator Tuberville talked about. And I remember being at the bottom of the chain of command, looking up at the top of the chain of command, Secretary of Defense. And I am living proof that whoever sits in that position has profound on all the way to the chain of command. Culture is set at the very top. And I'm convinced through my friendship with Pete Hegseth that he is the right man to set the culture within the Department of Defense to renew a focus on warfighting and lethality. I could give you all of the reasons that I think that's true. I could talk about Pete's courage. I could talk about how we're at an inflection point in conflict and a transformational change in warfare as warfare is evolving and changing around the world. I could talk about how we're at one of the most volatile periods in history. There's more conflict on the African continent. My SEAL brothers to the left and right of me know that I ended my career at Special Operations Command Africa. There's more conflict on the African continent around and in modern history. So there's all of these emerging threats out there. There's all of these emerging technologies that we have to know how to harness. There's an information battle space that's happening that I could argue nobody is better, understands that better than Pete Hegseth to help lead the way in this new fight and this emerging threat environment. But what I want to say, the most important thing that I can convey is that the very first principle, the fundamental job of the Secretary of Defense is to convince our fighting men and women to go out and kill the enemy at the risk of being killed themselves. And that is a fundamentally different thing. And I would give you, as proof, this unprecedented that you're witnessing. The military is inherently non-political. When we were out kicking doors in Iraq and Afghanistan, we didn't ask if the person to the left or the right of us, stack in front or behind of us, was a Republican or a Democrat. We didn't care. We cared about mission, which is actually Pete's focus, mission, right? So for hundreds of veterans, especially hundreds of special operations veterans, to do an unlimited thing, to come to Washington in support of a potential Secretary of Defense is the most telling thing you could see. We haven't seen anything like this injected into the political process in a very long time. In fact, I would argue that it's unprecedented. So please do not discount or take for granted the idea that you have the men and the women who fought the wars of the last 2 decades here to endorse the new Secretary of Defense. That is the greatest evidence that he is the greatest potential leader for us in the conflicts of the future. Thank you.
Famous war fighters in this room, and I want to introduce one more. Legendary fighter pilot Scott O'Grady. Scott, you mind coming up? It doesn't always pay to be my friend because Scott didn't know he's coming up.
I'll be really brief. I'm Scott O'Grady. I'm an Air Force veteran. So we have all service branches here supporting Pete, combat veterans from the last couple of decades. And it's enough. We're done. The political leadership in this country has failed us. We need to go back to making the Department of Defense not a political toy for them to inject their social experiments. The military is for one reason only, and that is to defend our country, defend our citizens, and defend our constitutional republic. And everybody here is in support of the man that can do that, and that's Pete Hegseth, our next Secretary of Defense. Thank you for supporting him. Call your congressman, call your senator, and make sure that they're on notice that Pete will be confirmed tomorrow. Thank you for your support.
The next speaker's in for a surprise, too. Jeff Gumbs is SEAL. He's been a partner of mine and a leader in the New York City SEAL swim since day one. Together, we've raised millions of dollars to help SEALs, veterans, and Gold Stars. Honored to have you, Jeff.
Thank you, Bill. It's an honor to be here, standing among my brothers. I did a 10-year SEAL team, surfed with many of them, and then got to meet many more doing the swims and come together for all the different challenges and things we have. We've all seen Pete has had a lot of opposition come against him as well. Some think there should only be admirals and generals that can go in and be a SecDef, but we've seen in Afghanistan that's the furthest thing from the truth. Many O4s, many of these admirals and generals were O4s or higher when 9/11 hit, and they never served in combat, no fault to themselves, but it's different when you're actually fighting the enemy. It's different when you're putting tourniquets on your brothers who've been blown up, who've been shot. And that's what Pete's been through. After going to Guantanamo Bay, he volunteered again. It's great hearing people that served with him. He volunteered again, went to Iraq, went back, worked in the private sector, went back to Afghanistan. If admirals and generals made the perfect plans, then Afghanistan would have went a lot smoother. I think we could have taken a dozen E4s and put them in a room, and they would have come up with a much better plan than the disaster that happened. Pete served as a second lieutenant and first lieutenant, got to see it all firsthand. It's hearing all the people that served with him, from the privates to the first sergeants. He was like a brother to them, and it's crazy to see they believed he would be president back then, and now he's on his way with this amazing role. And he's going to start by fixing our military. He's going to start all all the militaries coming together already. This has never happened before. From the Navy, the Army, all coming together, and it's going to be powerful. All the DEI and all forcing women to go to SEAL training and go to Ranger School and all these things. Do we have women in the NFL and in the Super? Are we like, you know how I can make this better? If we put a woman at quarterback and have them get tackled by a 300-pound man, it doesn't make sense. Just like that doesn't make sense. They've done the studies, and it showed that a mixed platoon did not perform as well as an all-male platoon. There is just a difference. The left has trouble seeing the difference. They're putting people who are born as men into boxing rings with women. It is not the right thing to do. Pete is against that. He's against all these horrible things that only weaken our military. So with that, this is what we need. We need that big, hard reset. And Pete not only has the military background, but his communication background, his charisma, swimming with him in the Hudson River, seeing how brave and tough he is to jump in and do that with us when he hadn't even swam with fins before. And it's a whole nother world when you got to do 3.5 miles against a current with 100 Navy SEALs. It's a whole different thing. And he never backed down. And then he would get out and get on the mic and do beautiful interviews. And that's what we need. That's the charisma we need leading our military.
So we have a legend in the room, and he's going to close it up for us. Roger Clark he's a retired Captain SEAL, and he served in Vietnam, and he didn't get enough, so he served in Afghanistan too.
I was recalled December 7th, 2001. Naval officer, December 7th. Is a day you never say no. It's Pearl Harbor Day. National security comes before everything. Without strong national security, all that we hold dear is put at risk. I've been concerned with the intense attempt to neuter our armed forces over the last several years, especially in the last 4. Now, I know Pete Hegseth, schools. There's concern right there. We should be watched carefully. I had concern with Pete's alma mater, Princeton, because it was famous for generating Aaron Burr, who shot Alexander Hamilton, class of 1759 at Columbia. But we've done a few things together. We made that swim in 2003 where we ran 2.5 miles and swam 3.5 upstream in the Hudson. So I forgive him. I forgive him. Stress builds men, and stress brings camaraderie. And that can be between men and women, doesn't matter. And Pete's the guy to stop what's coming down. And I'm glad to be here, and I'm glad to have met so many of you and seen so many of you. You all have great stories.
Hey, there's another gentleman here that served with Pete. I'd like to come up and talk Thought he has a powerful story, and I apologize, I can't read or speak. Chris Sonaskis. Don't hit me, brother. I deserve it.
I'm Chris Chernowskis. I didn't serve in the unit with Pete, but I served when Pete did. And when I was talking to Bill, I told him about the future. A lot of the great veterans here, men and women, have served in the past. I have 2 sons at the military academy right now. And we start talking about the future. For those that have parents, if there are any other parents that have kids who are about to go in uniform, they're your pride and joy. And you do not want to surrender them to anyone who's not going to have their best interest at heart, because they will stand up and say, I state your name, do solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic. I've had friends that did serve with Pete. I've known about Pete. I've stayed apolitical for my entire career, 31 plus years, and enough's enough. And I pray that Pete gets confirmed tomorrow. He starts taking action on day 1 like this administration promises to do. And I just wanted to say that when my son stepped into the military academy, people asked me why. And my hope and prayer to God was that one day there will be the right leadership. And that's what's going to happen tomorrow. So, Pete Hegseth, thank you, brother.
Karen Vaughn, are you here? Is Karen Vaughn in the room? I guess she's not in the room. She called me earlier, said she was en route. I guess she got caught up. She was coming from Arlington. Last seal, Mike Atkinson. Come on up.
Kind of a surprise. I've been following this for quite some time. It's a shame that Pete has been pilloried the way he has when he's been so articulate in so many ways across so many forms of media, and most particularly with books. I mean, you can't judge a book by the cover, but you can judge a man by his book, and it would be well pay attention to all that he's put out in public and to look at it and to understand it. And when one does, it's something that you can easily get behind fully, because all the things the guys have said before, there's a lot of things that need to be corrected, and it takes a maverick. It takes a person who thinks outside the box. It takes a person who's fearless in order to have any sort of accomplishment in a stupefying bureaucracy, the sort of which we have. So very excited to be at the hearing tomorrow and support Pete. And for the media, I brought a bunch of copies of the book. So if you're unclear as to what he thinks, you can read it and find out for yourself and become educated.
All right, guys, so I want to give the debrief for tomorrow. So this is Operation Full Court Press, and we kind of have 2 prongs of attack. The first prong of attack is going to be, and everybody that has hotel rooms, I want you to be on that attack if at all possible. Unfortunately, that means getting up very early. Influence is directly correlated to proximity. So what the plan of action is we want to stack that conference room, the Dickerson Senate office building, with as many veterans as possible. Now, I got some type of intel out there that some non-supporters of Pete might be trying to do the same. So in the teams, we're all about being there first. And that's what my plan of action here is. I want to be on target first. I'm going to have a bus at the what's that other hotel, Clark Plaza?
State Plaza.
State Plaza at 3:30 a.m. waiting for you there. If you're going into the hearing room, I want you in a suit and tie if possible. Or if not a tie, a suit. We want to present a professional image. But we got these hats. I don't know if you're going to be able to wear them. My buddy brought some really cool sweatshirts for the guys on the march. But 3:30 a.m., be out there, right out by the lobby. Get picked up on that bus. Then the crew here, be here at about 4 a.m., be out here at the lobby, a bus will pick you up. Now, security, because of January the 6th event, security around the Capitol grounds is pretty strict. And it's going to be cold out there. And because we're going to get early, my ideal plan is this. I have the bus, and it waits right outside that Senate building because the doors don't open at 7, but I want us to be there first in case you got to get out and line up against the door. Now, what will likely happen is because of security measures, I'm going to reach out to Forensic Capitol Police, but it's likely they're not going to let the bus through. And have the bus literally parked right outside that building. If that's the case, you're going to have to depart the bus and walk up. I'm going to be with you guys there because Rob's going to be the lead SEAL in that contingent, but I'm going to be there. And the overflow, because I imagine if my numbers are right, because I have 60 blocked rooms, and a lot of guys are showing up who have their own rooms. And I have 40 of those rooms are double bedded. So we should be able to overpack that room and have overflow. If that's the case and we have overflow, which I believe we will, I'm going to lead that contingent back to where my second prong of attack. And my second prong of attack is the Vietnam Memorial Wall. And there, it's going to be different. And in the Capitol building, remember, we're going to hold